My son was 10 years old when he started having back pain. Sorry, I can't help, I cry sometimes. And we ignored it because kids get pains and you ignore it. 3 weeks later, he was still having back pain and we were giving him ibuprofen every 4 hours. So we couldn't ignore it any longer. So we went to the doctors. And 2 weeks later, we found out he actually had Hodgkin's lymphoma. And he had a tumor in his neck and a tumor in his chest. And the one in his chest was actually touching one of his vertebrae, and it was dissolving the bone. And this meant that then he had to have chemo. So we tried to make it as fun as we could. It was a summer of chemo, and we would have the night before chemo party, because that's what he wanted to call it. And we'd invite all of his friends over, and it was a fun night before the hell the next day. So after the summer of chemo, he was clear, and things were starting to roll along again. We were back to normal. And then on April Fool's Day, I'm at the deli counter with my 2 sons, and Madison looks up at me and says, "Mommy, when they took the port out, did they leave something in?" And I looked at his neck, and you could see the lump, and it was back. When I first had found out about this whole thing, I was holding the whole family together. I was the rock. I had to be. And I couldn't cry in front of my kids because they needed me to be a rock. And but when I walked into the cancer support community, I could lay down that weight and cry, and they were there for me. And my son also, Madison, needed to talk. And Kayo, who is now the program director, every time that he talked to her, it was weight that was lifted off of me, and I didn't have to bear that weight. Then my other son, Giovanni, didn't want to talk. He did not want to talk about it at all. He just wanted to have fun. And the cancer support community had something for him. It's called Kids Circle. And he still goes to it. And kids can just go and have fun and be kids and be with other kids that are also affected by cancer. So when Madison's cancer came back, he went through his chemo. Then after that, he had to have a bone marrow transplant. And the cancer support community, after we came home from the hospital, was there to help us again. We came home raw and exhausted, and they were there to help us. And they even formed a group for parents with cancer, of kids with cancer, which lost its funding for a year. And that's why I'd like to ask you to help them to help us. Thank you.